Welcome into the channel, everyone. My name is Kyle Yates. Today, I am breaking down the top 100 players in my latest Superflex rankings for fantasy football this year. Let's get to it. All right, if this is your first time checking out the channel, make sure you do a couple things for me. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell to get notified for when new content drops. A ton more content coming your way here as we get into the fantasy football season. It's July 7th as I am recording this right now. I am desperately wanting and waiting for anything to happen in the NFL space. It's been all World Cup here. I need some NFL news. So we're going to make it here. We're going to get into some top 100 Superflex rankings. My rankings are completely free, so make sure to check these out over at the website, yatesfantasyfootball.com, or subscribe over at the Substack. You can find the link for that here in the description as well, completely free. All right, I'm going to go 100 through 91. Let's just break this up, 100 through 91 here, and then I'm going to talk about a couple of players within here. I'm not going to spend time talking about every single player. I would be here for 3 hours. Sam Laporta, tight end for the Detroit Lions. Kyle Pitts for the Atlanta Falcons at 99, Michael Wilson at 98, Chuba Hubbard at 97, Cortland Sutton at 96, Ramondre Stevenson, running back for the New England Patriots at 95, Jaylen Warren for the Pittsburgh Steelers at 94, Rico Dowdle at 93, DK Metcalf at 92, wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, gets pushed a little bit further down the board with the addition of Michael Pittman Jr., Harold Fannin Jr., tight end for the Cleveland Browns at 91, and then we'll stop there. All right, who to talk about within here? I think a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers in here, so let's just talk and break down the Pittsburgh Steelers back to back. DK Metcalf, Rico Dowdle, Jaylen Warren. Dowdle and Warren is going to be a really interesting backfield to monitor here as we move into this season. Who is going to be the lead back in this backfield? Is Jaylen Warren going to step into the receiving down role that was just vacated by Kenneth Gainwell? Jaylen Warren was operating, I think, outside of what he normally does operate and does well last year, as Gainwell was one of the most trusted options for Aaron Rodgers in the short passing game. So I think we could see Dowdle as the Thunder in this backfield and Jaylen Warren as more of the Lightning. Now, reports have been that that's going to be flipped, that it's actually going to be Jaylen Warren as the Thunder and Rico Dowdle as the Lightning. I don't necessarily see that playing out that way. But if Warren does get the receiving down work, I think he has the skill set to actually be very, very competent and capable in this and be a trusted receiving option for Aaron Rodgers out of the backfield. A situation to monitor here as we move into training camp. I doubt that these guys are going to be here at 93 and 94 in my final rankings update that I do, right before the season starts. DK Metcalf at 92. The talent level just doesn't match, and the skill set doesn't match with what Aaron Rodgers wants to do at this stage of his career. Aaron Rodgers wants to get that ball out extremely quick. He does not want to be hit. DK Metcalf is best being that vertical option deep down the field. We saw that with Russell Wilson in Seattle. That's just not how DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers wants to operate now, where he's going to hang into the pocket for 3+ seconds, let DK Metcalf build up a head of steam and get downfield and air it out. That might happen once or twice a game on a bootleg action, a play action coming around the formation. Like, maybe that happens, but I just don't see that happening consistently. So DK Metcalf down here as more of a boom bust wide receiver 3 flex option in the rankings. I think Michael Pittman Jr. in the short passing game as a RPO option, creating releases off the line of scrimmage. I actually think that that's what Michael Pittman Jr. matches really well. So that's why I've got Pittman up in the rankings. Michael Wilson is the only other one that I'll talk about here at 98, a player that I'm certainly intrigued with going into this year. I think if Jacoby Brissett is the starter for all 17 games, then I'm going to feel a lot more confident with Michael Wilson over Marvin Harrison Jr. But do we get Carson Beck at some point? And that's just going to, I think, tank what Michael Wilson's going to be able to do from a fantasy standpoint. So Marvin Harrison Jr. a little bit higher up in the rankings, playing the ADP game, where Wilson's much further down in ADP. Harrison is much higher, so kind of bridging that gap. But if you ask me just straight up who I would prefer, I think I would lean Wilson, but you got to kind of play both games here with the ADP staying closer to that expert consensus ranking, all that sort of stuff. All right, let's go into that next top tier here, or that next tier. It is at 90, Jacoby Brissett, quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. Then we go, and this is in Superflex format, right? That would be very important. Very important to note here why Jacoby Brissett is at 90. Jacoby Brissett, then Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals at 89. Carnell Tate, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. Jadarian Price Alec Pierce, Bashal Tutin, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tucker Kraft for the Green Bay Packers at 84, Bucky Irving at 83, Travion Henderson at 82, and then Bryce Young here at 81. Not a ton to break down from the quarterback's standpoint here with Jacoby Brissett, Bryce Young. These guys are in my 20s, mid to low 20s at the quarterback position in the rankings. That's where they land here in Superflex formats. Talked a little bit about Marvin Harrison Jr. Not super confident on him going into this year. Let's talk about Jadarian Price here at 87. I am a little bit hesitant to fully commit to Jadarian Price being a top 20 running back to begin the season while Zach Charbonnet is recovering. We're getting a lot of buzz about George Holani, the now third or fourth year running back, where he is potentially going to step in and take some work away here from Jadarian Price. Price, obviously a rookie running back out of Notre Dame, was Jeremiah Love's running mate. So he's super unproven, right? Like what we have seen on tape is good. I had him at running back 4 in this class coming in. I had him behind both Jonah Coleman and Emmett Johnson. So I was not the biggest Jadarian Price fan on his film. Think that there is not a ton of proven options from film from a pass protection and pass receiving down work that's just not on his tape because you had Jeremiah Love. And so why would you put Jadarian Price out there if you're Notre Dame? So I think we're going to see George Holani involved, and that's going to limit what Price is going to do. And then as soon as Zach Charbonnet comes back into the fold, then Charbonnet is going to be the lead back. I just don't see this. We see the price tag of a first-round pick, for Jadarian Price in this NFL draft. We think immediately, well, he's a first-round running back. He's going to produce. We've seen this trap played out before with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I'm not calling him CEH. I'm not saying that he's going to completely bust, but there is enough on film for me to be concerned about that he is going to immediately step in and be this top 20 guy. And now that we're seeing these reports come out about, other backs being involved in this backfield, it's a good offense, obviously. So we want to have that be factored in, but not to the point where I'm pushing him up here into the top 75 of my rankings. Bashal Tutin's the other guy. I think I'm going to be lower than consensus on him. I think that I see this backfield playing out where Chris Rodriguez is actually going to be the lead back from a carries perspective when it's all said and done. As the first and second down guy, you'll have LaQuint Allen rotate in on third downs. Bashal Tutin is more of the explosive play, the guy who's going to come in and provide a really nice complement, the thunder and lightning, right? Like Chris Rodriguez being able to be that guy that if you need 3 yards, he's going to get you 4. If you need Bashal Tutin to be the guy that gives you 3 yards, he might get you 1 or he might get you 20, right? There's just still so much unknown with him where he's got to work out some vision issues as well. So I think I'm seeing that play out that way, where it's going to be more of a explosive play, come into as a change of pace option. He could be incredibly efficient at the end of the year when it's all said and done of a 5.5 yards per carry, but you're going to have some some plays that are just going to go for negative yardage and then some that are going to be explosive plays. So I think you're going to kind of have to live with that. And if he's in an explosive play change of pace role for this offense, then that's where I could see Liam Cohen and this Jacksonville Jaguars coaching staff living with that. If he's your lead option and you're giving him the ball 15 plus times a game, you can't live with that. You need to be at least sure that what you're going to get is consistency, and that's what Chris Rodriguez brings, as long as he's healthy, which all expectations are that Rodriguez is going to be healthy when we start the year. Finally, the other one that I'll talk about here, I just did a video on Bucky Irving as a YouTube short here on the channel, so make sure to check that one out because that kind of breaks down where I'm at with Bucky Irving. Tucker Kraft is the one that I did want to talk about here. If he is fully healthy, then he's going to be closer into that tier of Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland than he is, in this kind of tier all on his own and closer than to Harold Fannin Jr., Kyle Pitts, and Sam Laporta, the guys that we just talked about. So if we do get positive news here in training camp that Tucker Kraft is going to be fully healthy to begin the year, then Kraft will be much higher than this at 84 in my rankings when we get closer to the season. All right, let's move it up. Let's go 80 into 71. Cam Ward, quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. Rome Odunze, wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. DJ Moore for the Buffalo Bills now. Tyler Warren, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery for the Chicago Bears and Houston Texans, respectively. Christian Watson at 74, a little bit lower than what I think some people have expected for him. Quinshon Judkins, running back for the Cleveland Browns, going into his second year. Travis Etienne. The amount of times that I've stumbled over saying his name, Travis Achan, running back for the New Orleans Saints, and then Mike Evans here at 71 now of the San Francisco 49ers. That's going to be one that I probably will never get used to saying. Mike Evans for the San Francisco 49ers. Roma Dunze, talk about him here at 79. I think that this wide receiver room is Luther Burden's. I think that Burden is going to absolutely take off here this year. I have very, very high hopes for him. And I think that Roma Dunze could be the guy that gets maybe that like 5 to 7 targets per game, catches 3 or 4 of them. He'll have some weeks where he absolutely goes off, but could be the guy that leads the receiving room in touchdowns when it's all said and done. But I think the most consistent option is going to be Luther Burden. And if you give Burden targets with his yards after the catch ability, in his efficiency, yards per out run, all that sort of stuff, like the talent level is there to absolutely skyrocket and take off. So Odunze, there's some conversation here, especially earlier on this offseason, that it was Odunze over Burden. I think that's kind of cooled, especially with Odunze talking about his foot injury and all that sort of stuff. It's always been for me. Luther Burden is the guy to target. And honestly, his ECR right now, Burden's, is wide receiver 23. I've got him like 8 spots higher. And that's just not something that you do when you rank. You don't go that aggressively. I'm doing it. I'm going all out on Luther Burden here this year. David Montgomery at 75. I've talked about him a lot as well. A player that I really like is a solid RB2 for your lineup if you can get him there, where I think the volume is going to be his, and they're just going to load him up with potentially 300 plus carries this year. Like, why wouldn't you? You have this defense in Houston. Montgomery is the perfect fit for what they want to do. Now, is he going to be ripping off 7 to 8 yard runs routinely? No, not at this stage of his career, but we know that he can handle a sizable workload, and you don't really have to worry about longevity if you're Houston. Run him into the ground and let him hit free agency, and then go draft one of these 2027 incoming rookies. But Montgomery, solid, reliable, steady. That's exactly what Houston wants, and I could see them just leaning on the ground game heavily here this year. Montgomery is a priority target for me in those middle rounds. And then Travis Achan, I did it. He is a player that if Alvin Kamara is no longer on this team, then Achan is going to be skyrocketing up my rankings. But as long as Kamara is here and getting paid what he's getting paid, then I just don't think that it's going to be solely his backfield. Maybe in 2027, but for right now, I see this more as a RB18, RB19 in the rankings for me versus a locked-in top 15, top 12 option, which is what it potentially looked like when he signed in free agency. It's a sizable contract, but if Kamara's going to be here, he's going to be utilized. All right, Mike Evans is the other one that I'll talk about just briefly. He's going to be good when he's on the field. At this point, you have to worry about longevity and durability. And you just, I think, have to recognize that he's going to miss some games. Let's go into 70 through 61. Javonte Williams, running back for the Dallas Cowboys. CJ Stroud, quarterback for the Houston Texans. Jamison Williams, Sam Darnold. Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, Jalen Waddle, Ladd McConkey, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers. A run on wide receivers there in the rankings. Then we go Daniel Jones, quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, coming off the Achilles injury, and then Cam Scadaboo, running back for the New York Giants. Who to talk about in here? Devontae Adams is a player that could potentially lead the league in receiving touchdowns. I don't think anyone's really questioning that. It could also regress massively this year because the amount of targets that went his way inside the 5-yard line last year was just astronomical. Now, he has the talent to do that. He's a quick separator still at this stage of his career at 33 years old, but you're not really relying on insane volume from him. So that's kind of the thing to be concerned about, is that if touchdown regression does hit him, if Matthew Stafford just isn't able to produce at an MVP level again, there's a lot that you're banking on and betting on. But the other side of it is, what if Puka Nacua misses time with an injury this year? Then Devontae Adams would be that wide receiver 1, and there is no depth behind them in this wide receiver room. Something to be concerned about. I'm personally not betting on Devontae Adams here this year. I think there are other options that I would rather chase. Obviously, Ladd McConkey is one in this range of drafts. Jalen Waddle, with the investment that they spent into him, and even Terry McLaurin. I think all these guys are right around one another in ADP. I would much rather have them than Devontae Adams. Terry McLaurin is going to see all the targets that he can handle this year. I think Antonio Williams is a player to keep an eye on here in Washington. Brandon Ayuk coming into town, honestly, if that does happen, I am not all that concerned about it because we have no idea what version of Brandon Ayuk we are going to get. And the version that we're seeing on social media is not one that I truly want to bet on. So Terry McLaurin, a player that if we get Jaden Daniels bouncing back to what he was in his rookie year, which I don't think there's any reason to think that we shouldn't see that. He was injured all of last year. Then McLaurin is a very, very solid bet here in the 60s overall in that 5th round range of your drafts. Jalen Waddle, talked about him, a player just dripping with upside here as they went and spent a 1st round pick plus for him in trade this offseason. And I don't think he's lost a step. I think he still has the ridiculous speed. Volume is going to be the question. With Cortland Sutton, with the defense that they have in Denver, do we just see enough passing volume where Jalen Waddle is going to see 7+ targets per game? Just a question. I think he's going to get targets close to the line of scrimmage. He's going to get scheme touches, so you don't have to worry about, well, those 7 targets are an 18+ ADOT down the field, and those only 50% of those convert or whatever. I think that we're going to see high quality and high conversion touches, but just a matter of what is the overall ceiling for that. And then Ladd McConkey, a player that I'm very, very bullish on here this year with Mike McDaniel. It's just a question of, does he truly stay locked in 2 wide receiver sets with the amount of tight ends that they have here in this offense? Mike McDaniel obviously loving to run what they do in San Francisco with a fullback as well. So that just takes wide receivers off the field. McConkey primarily been a slot receiver, but based on his tape and what I saw at Georgia, how high I was on him coming out of Georgia, I think that he can thrive in one as the outside wide receiver. Finally, Cam Skattebo, a player I love to target at this stage of drafts. I think if I can't get Cam Skattebo in this range of drafts, then I'm waiting. I'm taking a shot on Ladd McConkey, and then I'm going to come back around and I'm going to get David Montgomery in that next round. I think that Montgomery is like Skattebo light this year, where I think there's a ton of upside for Skattebo in this offense. John Harbaugh obviously coming in from what he did with Derrick Henry over the past couple of years. Skattebo has that same type of profile where you can just load him up with touches, utilize him heavily around the goal line, and he's a solid receiver on top of it. Like, there's upside here for Skattebo this year. I was worried about, with how much talk was coming out about they're going to go target Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne in free agency. And then, oh, wait, they're contenders for Jeremiah Love. If Jeremiah Love had been there on the board at 5, would they have taken him in the NFL draft? That's a question that we'll never know. But Skattebo now is the main option in this backfield. Tyrone Tracy is going to be a change of pace guy. I think that Skattebo is going to be loaded up with touches here this year. A very, very solid bet here, and someone that I could easily see rising in my rankings, honestly, as we go forward. Let's go into the next range. That is Zay Flowers here at 60, Josh Jacobs at 59, Emeka Egbuka at 58. Then we go into Garrett Wilson. Some really, really solid players available here in that 4th, 5th round of your drafts. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, back-to-back New York Jets. Kyron Williams at 55, Colston Loveland for the Chicago Bears, a player that I love to target here this year. Malik Neighbors on a little bit of a free fall in my rankings because I don't think that he's going to be ready to roll week 1. Luther Burden above Malik Neighbors in my rankings. This is a situation where you're not going to see that a whole lot. In rankings on YouTube, on wherever you're finding your rankings, you're not going to see a whole lot of channels out there that are ranking Luther Burden above Malik Neighbors. That's where I've got him here this year. And then Tyler Shuck at 51, quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. Josh Jacobs could be a value when we get all around to it, but the legal situation is still playing out. We don't know what that's fully going to look like this year. And so a situation to just kind of continue to monitor as we move throughout training camp. This has not been resolved based on my understanding that we are still waiting for a verdict here in this whole Josh Jacobs situation. So keep an eye on that. Emeka Egbuka is one that I would not be shocked if we get to the end of this season and we look back on ADP and we're just like, what in the world were we doing drafting Emeka Egbuka here at 58? We should have been drafting him in the 30s or 20s. The start that he got off to last year before getting injured, before Baker Mayfield got injured, a bunch of factors went against him. Emeka Egbuka is a absolute star. Was the wide receiver 3 through the first 5 weeks of last year of his first 5 weeks in the NFL. Like, that just doesn't happen. He's going to settle into the Z receiver role, which is he's an excellent fit for. Chris Godwin out of the slot. Jalen McMillan potentially as that sacrificial X in this offense. Like, targets are going to be funneled through Godwin and through Egbuka, and the talent level's there. Colson Loveland, a player that if you want to take a shot on the early tight end, you don't want to wait for one of those guys later on with a Harold Finn Jr. or whatever. Loveland, I think there's a world in which Loveland leads the entire Bears receiving core in targets this year. Like, he's going to be a key integral part of this offense, especially as we see NFL offenses move more and more towards the 12 and 13 personnel groupings. Loveland's just going to be heavily targeted here this year. Burden above him, I talked about him already, so not a ton to break down here. Tyler Shuck, a player that got off or finished the year with just on an absolute tear. I don't expect that to truly continue, especially with every other quarterback healthy to begin the year. But a very, very solid quarterback 2 option later on in your drafts in Superflex formats. Then let's move into the top 50. We got Jeremiah Love, the rookie running back out of Notre Dame with the Arizona Cardinals, the number 3 overall pick. Then Kenneth Walker for the Kansas City Chiefs, Devontae Smith, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, Baker Mayfield, T. Higgins, Tetaroa McMillan. Then we go Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Rashee Rice, and Derrick Henry. Kenneth Walker, I think, is potentially the key to figuring out this Kansas City Chiefs offense, right? When we had single high coverage defense, several years ago, we're going back to like when Tyreek Hill was absolutely just dominating for the Kansas City Chiefs. That was because Patrick Mahomes able to air the ball out deep downfield. But once we saw these defenses shift and adjust to primarily what the Chiefs were doing and playing these 2 high shells, then that just prohibits and takes away those deep shots. And when the Chiefs go and draft Xavier Worthy to be the Tyreek Hill replacement, but you can't get the ball to Xavier Worthy deep downfield, Tyquan Thornton's kind of stepped into that role when they have the opportunity. They really haven't had answers within this Kansas City Chiefs receiving core to be the answer to those, to that cover 2 options. So Kenneth Walker, I think, is the key to unlocking this, where when you do have a running back who can gash defenses when you're not loading up the box, when you don't have that extra player to push into the box, then you're sacrificing that, you're sending that back. Then Kenneth Walker to be able to pick up 5, 6, 7 yards at a time. Because he has the explosive play ability to do so. You have Mahomes who can keep defenses honest and keep them pushing back, because the minute that they do push in is when Mahomes is going to go over their heads and air it out to Tyquan Thornton or Xavier Worthy deep downfield. Like, Walker has the ability to be the solution here for the Kansas City Chiefs offense. And I see that playing out here this year as a potential top 12 running back. Walker's into my top 12 in the rankings. And we have to worry about durability. He's been banged up throughout his career. He has never seen a super sizable workload. So that's something to keep in mind here. But I think that's also baked into his ADP here at 49. If we get to the end of the year and we said Kenneth Walker is a top 5 running back because he stayed healthy and he was in this offense, I wouldn't be shocked. Devontae Smith stepping in for the A.J. Brown role as the wide receiver 1 here in this offense. It's a new offense under Sean Mannion. Can't get much worse than what it was last year, but Jalen Hurts, can he get back to what he was doing as a passer several years ago? I've never been the biggest Jalen Hurts fan as a passer, and so if we don't have the reliability from a quarterback standpoint to really kind of push Smith from a talent standpoint, I think from a talent standpoint, Smith should be ranked above Rashee Rice and potentially even Chris Olave, right? Like these other guys, I think he should be ranked up there. But when we have the quarterback question marks, that's why he's down here a little bit further in my rankings. I'm a little bit lower than consensus on Devontae Smith. Baker Mayfield is taking that step back with Zach Robinson now as the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. That's going to be a situation to monitor here this year. Jared Goff, Jordan Love, those guys as QB2s. Baker Mayfield even falls into this as well. Like QB2s in your Superflex format, I'm totally fine with. They're not going to bring a ridiculous amount of upside because they don't do much with their legs. But as just a solid, steady option for you, I have no issue targeting them here in this part of your draft. And then Rashee Rice, just a matter of, is he going to keep his head on his shoulders and stay out of trouble off the field? I think once we get into the season, that should resolve itself, but you have to worry about it. I think if he avoids suspension, he's rehabbing in jail this offseason, but if he stays off of the commissioner's exempt list and suspended list and whatever, then I think that we could see him produce as a top 10 wide receiver here this year. Moving into the top 40, there's not going to be a ton to break down here with these guys, but we got Chris Olave, wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. Then we go Malik Willis, quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, a player that I am a little bit more aggressive on, and I've talked about that here on the channel as well. Chase Brown, running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. Trey McBride, set it and forget it tight end here early on in your, if you do want to go early tight end in your drafts, Saquon Barkley, George Pickens. Then we go Kyler Murray at 34. I think that we're going to see a bounce back here. We'll talk about Kyler Murray in a second. Amari and Hampton, potential league winner at the running back position, a player that I love targeting here in the third round of drafts. A.J. Brown, wide receiver for the New England Patriots. I think we're going to see A.J. Brown silence the haters this year. I'm all for it. And then Brock Bowers at 31. A little bit of a gap there with Bowers to McBride. Willis is a player that I think the rushing floor is just going to be too enticing to move away from and to not target, especially at a bit of a discount in your drafts. So if you can get Willis here at the end of the third round, beginning of the fourth round, where you go a hero quarterback strategy, you get yourself a Josh Allen, or one of those top tier guys, and then you come back around, you load up on wide receiver, running back, and then you get a Malik Willis to be your QB2 in the fourth round. Like, that's just, I absolutely love that strategy. Kyler Murray, what we saw last year was not great. The year before was actually pretty decent. And so I think that we have this really bad taste in our mouth from Kyler Murray. Situation and environment matters at the quarterback position. Like Jonathan Gannon and what we were seeing with that coaching staff, like, I just never had full faith in it. And what if Kyler Murray just knew that this was not going to be a situation that he was going to be able to win in? And that buy-in, especially from a quarterback standpoint, like that matters immensely. And now you're getting Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jawan Jennings, and then Kevin O'Connell as the coaching difference purely from Jonathan Gannon to Kevin O'Connell is just ridiculous. That alone should push Kyler Murray up here into the top 30s, into the 30s at, in Superflex rankings. And that's just not happening across the board. Kyler Murray is especially in one quarterback format, man, you wait until one of the final rounds and get yourself Kyler Murray. I think that we're going to see a bounce back season here. Would not be shocked if we're all done at the end of the year and Kyler Murray's the comeback player of the year. Then we move into the 30s. We will go with Devon Achane, Nico Collins, Bo Nix, Ashton Genty, Patrick Mahomes, Drake London, Matthew Stafford here at 24 above Patrick Mahomes. Then James Cook, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. I would love to be able to get CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson at the back end of the second round in my fantasy drafts in Superflex formats. We'll see if that actually happens when it's all said and done. But not a ton to break down here in this territory, honestly. Like Nico Collins is probably the one that I have the most questions on, and at least a little bit of concern of what is he actually going to be able to do here this year if we do see Houston switch more to the heavy ground game. What I talked about with David Montgomery. Like if that happens, what's the volume look like for Nico Collins? Does CJ Stroud get back to form or does he continue to regress, which has happened since his rookie campaign? Like there's at least a little bit of questions there with Nico Collins. I think some people are very bullish on him. I'm a little bit more hesitant, still ranking him here as a top 30 option. Like we can't be super, super aggressive and push him out of that range because the talent level's absurd. But I do just have questions with him. Otherwise, I don't think there's much to break down here in this territory of drafts. Patrick Mahomes, if he's out there week 1, I think he has a case to be moved into that top 24, and all signs right now are pointing to Patrick Mahomes being out there week 1. We'll see if that actually happens. Then into the top 20 we go. Christian McCaffrey, running back for the San Francisco 49ers. We go Brock Purdy, Jackson Dart for the New York Giants. Could pay off there immensely. Got to stay healthy. Got to avoid that blue medical tent, which is becoming his nemesis. Jonathan Taylor, Trevor Lawrence, Amon-Ra St. Brown, then Dak Prescott, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Puka Nacua, Caleb Williams to round out the top 20 through 11. Again, not a ton that I can break down here that we have questions on. These are some of the top tier guys. Brock Purdy, when he was playing last year, now he missed, I think, 7 games off the top of my head. When he was playing, he was absolutely phenomenal. Was the quarterback 2 in points per game last year. So I think that we have this perspective of him as just a guy that he's a QB2, like a solid option that you can get some peak upside. No, he was running around a ton last year when he was healthy, and that led to very, very solid fantasy production. Now you add in a guy like Mike Evans, we could see that 19 overall ranking. We could say that is a massive value for him. Trevor Lawrence, a player that I love targeting here this year as well. Going into year 2, weapons galore here in this offense. Caleb Williams, you got a tougher schedule to work through and navigate here this year, but man, year 2 in a Ben Johnson system, we could see Caleb Williams go absolutely nuclear. Let's go into the top 10 again. I'm not going to break it down a ton here. There's not a ton to break down. Let's talk about him. Jalen Hurts, a player that passing I just talked about with Devontae Smith, a little bit concerned about, but the main thing here to think about is if he's not getting the tush push touchdowns, which fell off dramatically, then are we actually getting a top 10 overall ranking Jalen Hurts? Like, is that actually going to happen? Or would we rather have someone like Brock Purdy, like Caleb Williams, like Trevor Lawrence? That is going to be, I mean, questions about what the offensive coordinator is going to do here for this offense. That could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. Like, we just don't know. There's so many questions with Jalen Hurts this year. Still, with his rushing upside and what he does present, I think you have to keep him in this range of rankings. But one of the players that I circle and just be like, what do I actually do with him here? Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Justin Herbert, Jaden Daniels. I'm aggressively banking on Jaden Daniels bouncing back here this year. I think that's going to happen. Joe Burrow. Then we go in Drake May, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen to round out the top 10. That is my 100 Superflex rankings. That was a ton. All right, thanks so much for watching here as I broke down the top 100 players in my Superflex rankings. Appreciate you guys watching and hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and clicking that bell to get notified for when new content drops. We are gearing up here. It is July 7th as I am recording this. We are gearing up here for the NFL season, and it is only going to take off. Make sure that you're following over on Substack. That's where I'm delivering a free newsletter to your inboxes 3 times a week. You can go and support my work there as well for just $5 a month. You get access to some awesome tools as well, like my Dynasty Trade Calculator that is giving you my custom Dynasty Trade values. So make sure to check that out as well. And then, of course, follow along on social media. All the links for that here in the YouTube description. Appreciate you guys. Until next time, I'll be back soon with another video. Take care.